elementary. I would say maybe you can not be as interactive with us as, like, maybe we could talk about the homework afterwards. I don't know how that fits in. And you could even talk about the results of the last meeting, which I think were very compelling.
Okay.
Because there's only 4 people here right now, so you know what I mean?
Sure.
I don't know how that,
No, we can make that work.
because I don't want it to also seem like there's only 4
Are you good,
people
son?
came, because last time we had a big
Oh,
group.
okay.
You're throwing me a major curveball here.
I know, how does that play? I think you could say, well, it's up to you.
No, we
Is
can
it
make that
easier to
work.
be interactive with us?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. We can do the statistics after the fact. Just move the,
Or if you talk about the statistics, because you could say, we've got a small group today, because we're, recording this for everyone,
Right.
everyone out at the properties. We had a big group here at corporate a few weeks ago, and the average debt of that group of people, about 20, however many people it was blah.
Okay.
Do you have those numbers still?
No, we should.
I remember actually,
Okay.
vaguely.
Just because with only 4 people, it's whatever, it's not as compelling.
Okay.
Plus, it's more obvious since it's just the 4 of us.
That's fine. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll talk about the
But
statistics
you could
from last
mention that we
time.
had another meeting with
Mhm.
about 25 corporate people.
Right. Yeah, no, that's fine. Then we'll go through our statistics here after.
Yeah, after he
the fact.
stops
Mhm.
recording it.
Yeah, that's totally fine. We can do that. We'll just kind of talk about what we're going to talk about there. So, good. Is this us? Is this the crew?
I think this is.
I like it.
Well, there was a few more people, but,
We had like 3 transitions in the last 24 hours, so
that's probably
that's
why.
why.
Yeah, we did have more people. We have, we're taking over a property in Michigan on Friday, tomorrow. It has like 60 employees. So anyway, so everyone's in cramming mode right
They got
now.
to do what they got to do. That's okay. I don't mind a small class. That's
But
fine
that's why
with
the
me.
recording, I think, will be good too. 'Cause there's some
Perfect.
people in marketing and accounting who are now scrambling to make this happen tomorrow. So
Perfect. Well, let's do it
we
well.
can send out the recording though.
I passed these out. If you guys can try to knock these out real quick. And these are going to be confidential, so I kind of just cram them in.
So,
I'm having chair problems.
all right. So, we're excited to be here. This is a fun class that Jeff and I do very often. So we're gonna, hopefully not overwhelm you this morning, but hopefully you'll leave today with a couple of nuggets that'll really make an impact in your financial world. That's our goal. So I'm Roberto. This is Jeff. We are financial advisors, Northwestern Mutual. We teach this class. It's actually a 9-week class that we teach. That we're sort of trying to condense into 1 hour, 45 minutes. So we're not going to be able to cover everything, but like I said, hopefully there's a few nuggets where we wanted to stay high level with some of the things we typically find are most important to people. And so hopefully today you'll leave better than you came. All right, so I'm excited. Before we jump in, since I just kind of want to hear maybe, well, 2 things. One, I want to hear what are maybe 1 or 2 things you want to make sure to cover today, or what are some things you'd like to learn today, if anything?
The last thing you were talking about Roth versus non-Roth.
Roth versus non-Roth. Okay. Anything else?
I don't really know anything about stocks and bonds and all that stuff.
Okay.
I know from the business sense, but not about me personally investing, so I'd like to know more about that.
Perfect.
Maybe about mortgages or.
Mortgages?
homes and
Okay.
stuff like that.
We'll talk about that.
I think they covered everything.
Perfect. Good. So we'll cover pretty much all of that. So good. So were you guys able to do your quizzes last night? All right. So where are my nerds at? Any nerds in the room?
I got
Almost
6.
there.
Yeah. I
Okay.
got 6.
So 6. Any outright free spirits? Or were you guys all pretty balanced?
Nerdy.
I was more nerdy.
More nerdy?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So
I'm an
nerd.
accountant,
So if you're more nerd, raise your hand. If you're more nerd, raise your hand. All right. So if you're more free spirit, raise your hand. All right. So pretty, 3-2. Okay. So free spirits, we're a little outnumbered here. I'm a little bit more free spirit too, actually. So the purpose of this quiz. Well, first off, was anybody surprised by the results, or did you feel like that's how you'd be?
I was surprised. I thought I was going to be free spirit, and I was like, wait a second, really?
So you thought free spirit, you ended up being nerd, actually.
Yeah.
Good.
Because I feel like I just like, whoa, let's spend money, and apparently I don't, so that's good.
It is so important to know how you're wired when it comes to money. So that's one of the first steps in, handling money well. It's just knowing how you're wired, and there's no right or wrong way. We are the way we are when it comes to money. So what can nerds in the room, 3 nerds, what can we teach the free spirits about money?
Don't spend what you don't have.
She's a nerd. You're preaching to the choir. Don't spend what you don't have. What else?
Don't spend spontaneously. What's the word?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No impulse buying.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, free spirits.
So thanks, guys.
Free spirits.
Good
It's
and
okay.
well fun.
Hey, there you go. So what can free spirits teach us about money?
To have fun.
Have fun. Enjoy
Enjoy
life
what you earn.
today, right? Absolutely. And a lot of times when you get married, you might find one of you's a nerd and one of you is free spirit. And that's beautiful, actually, because you sort of balance each other out. And so knowing how you're wired, though, you sort of have to learn to be both, too, as well, though. There's a purpose to save, there's a place to saving, there's a place to being very frugal and smart and responsible, but you gotta also live life today, right? Does that make sense? It's a big reason sometimes free spirits, do we like to budget? Probably not, okay? If you said yes, maybe call your bluff a little bit, but we don't really like to budget. But that helps us budget, actually, knowing that we can build into our budget enjoy life now type category in our budget. So that's very important. So good. We'll tell you a little bit about the agenda today. So here's what we're going to do. So we are going to talk a little bit about some baby steps here in a second. Then we're going to break into 3 categories, 3 topics. We're going to talk about retirement, all right? We're going to talk about debt reduction, and then we're going to talk about insurance, all right? The dreaded insurance, all right? All of these are important topics in the financial world. So let's talk about these baby steps. So if you go to the second page, which most of you guys are at already, so sometimes you just need a place to start. Some of you are very good planners, some of you need somewhere to start. And we want to give you some steps. Where should I start? We hear that a lot. It's overwhelming, we don't know where to begin, and that paralyzes us from even taking a step forward. So I want to walk you through these steps real quick. So step 1, if you're like, where do I start? Absolute step 1 is we got to get a little bit of money in savings, all right? About $1,000 in savings is what we're trying to get you to build up. All right, why? Because you need. Anybody have a car breakdown just randomly, or did you ever break something, or life just throw you a curveball ever? Yes, absolutely. Murphy's Law, it's going to happen, so we need some quick cash, just side savings. Grandma save for a rainy day, right? So step 1, just get a little bit of money in savings. Because as you're trying to build some momentum, life's going to throw you some curveballs. It's just going to happen, so we need to start there. Get $1,000 built up in savings. From there, we want to focus all our debt on paying off our debt. Okay? That's step 2. So we want to pay off all consumer debt except the mortgage. Some of you may not be in any debt. I know some of you in this room may not have any debt. Some of you might be overwhelmed with debt. If your family was like my family had a lot of debt and it hurt them. And so, some of you need to get into debt. So step 2 is we want to pay off all the debt. We're going to go into that here in a little bit. Step 3, once we've paid off all the debt, we want to come back to fill in the rest of the emergency fund. All right, step 1 is just to get a little bit in there. Step 3, we really want to build the whole thing out. And that's 3 to 6 months of just cash, okay? Just cash in the bank, set aside. Once we're there, step 4 is we're going to really tackle retirement. 15% of our income into retirement accounts. And we're going to cover the difference between Roth and non-Roth here in a little bit. Step 5, if you've got kids, who's got kids in the room? All right, two people got kids, and at that point, once we are making sure we are covered, then it's time to start saving for the kids' education. And then step 6 is pay off the house early, and step 7 is build wealth and give it away. Because the most fun you can ever have with money is giving it away. I promise you that. And so that might be a culture shift to you, a paradigm shift to you. But giving money away, it's the best feeling you ever have. But you can't do it unless your household's taken care of first. Okay? Any questions about that? All right, so those baby steps. That is a great place to start if we need somewhere to start. So let's hone in on a couple of those areas. Let's sort of fast forward to step 4. Let's talk about retirement a little bit. Anybody here want to retire one day? Tomorrow? Like yesterday, if we can. All right, so retirement. Retirement is actually, and I hate to over dramatize it, but it's actually an epidemic. I mean, this is a problem today. Why is it a problem? Why do you guys think retirement's a problem?
People can't retire.
People can't. Why not?
Too much debt.
Debt's definitely an issue.
When they haven't saved enough.
Haven't saved enough. That's probably the chief concern. What other issues? Inflation. We're living longer lives. Modern medicine. Retirement is this animal that really needs to be addressed and really needs to be taken seriously. Now think about it. Our generation, I would say, is one of the first generations where retirement's not institutionalized. Before us, they had what? Pensions, they had robust Social Security, and they had their own personal savings, right? We called it the 3-legged stool of retirement. Well, our generation, we got kind of like a 1.5-legged stool, right? And that kind of half one's teetering a little bit. It's really on us. With never before, ever, in a generation, has it ever been on us like it is today. And so retirement is, like I said, on our own personal savings. So before we get to some of the specifics about retirement, we have to talk about saving and making it a priority, okay? You can make anything a priority. You guys that have kids, would you do anything for your children? Like anything. You would do absolutely anything, I'd probably bet. If your child had some sort of rare illness, rare infection, and the worst is happening, and there's a vaccine out there that's very rare, but it can be purchased for $5,000. But you don't have $5,000 right now. Let's just assume. How quickly are you going to save up $5,000 and buy that vaccine?
Pretty fast.
You're going to save it up pretty fast, right? It's just a priority. If you can make savings a priority, retirement has to become a priority. And so to kind of reinforce that, I want you to go to this last page for a second. I want to tell you a little story. For those of you at home, we'll mail this story to you. We'll have this available to you. But this is the story of Ben and Arthur, okay? So 2 guys, 2 friends, Ben and Arthur. So Ben, our friend Ben, starts saving money when he's 19 years old. He saves $2,000 a year until he's 26. That's a total of 8 years. And after that, he never invests another dime the rest of his life. He just straight stops at 26. Arthur, his best friend, starts saving money at 27 years old. And he saves the same amount of money, $2,000 a year, until he's 65. So that's his entire life, basically. At the end of this story, Ben, who only invested $16,000, ends up with $2.2 million. But Arthur, who put in $78,000, ends up with $1.5 million. So Ben, just because he started earlier, came out ahead $700,000. This is the power of compounding interest, okay? Compounding interest, one of the basic principles of finance is time value of money. The earlier you can start something, the better. Compound interest basically says, hey, I have $100 that I saved, and I earn, let's say, for simplicity purposes, 10% interest on that. All right, that's $10. So the next year you have $110, and you earn another 10%. But well, you don't earn it on just 100 now. You now earn it on 110. So the 10% is a little bit bigger. And over time, this actually becomes a mathematical explosion. I mean, an explosion down the road. Imagine when down here in their 50s, they've got millions of dollars in their account, and that 10% is a heck of a lot bigger than $10, right? We're talking thousands upon thousands of dollars. So it's an explosion. So we have to start early. Yes?
Good question on this. On this example, what's the interest rate they're using for this example?
I don't think it matters, but it's 12%. But it really doesn't matter. You could use really any rate of return, and it's still going to come out bigger, naturally. What does this tell you? What are you guys thinking as you're reading this?
Start saving early, or investing.
I'm just like,
Any 19-year-olds in the room?
Right, I think I know.
same.
Are you guys all investing in your 401k here for the group? Good. I ran an analysis yesterday morning showing it was the difference between a 24 and a 26-year-old. Basically about the same as the idea as this. Person investing $100 a month at 24 versus 26-year-old investing $100 a month. And the difference at age 65 was $340,000.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's $100, and them never doing anything different, just $100. So as their salary grows, they can invest more. So that's just staying at 100. So just think about what that number would be if you did 200 or 300.
And what's also important here that's not even demonstrated or not really talked about is the systematic, consistent saving over time. They didn't stop. They didn't read CNN and see the stock market crashed and pull all of their money out of their investments. These guys saved $2,000 every year. I'm sure there was probably a little recession in there, some sort of housing bubble crash. Let's think real world here for a second. There's a it's called behavioral finance, and so people tend to take their money out of the market when they hear things are going bad. You can't do that. The investing's kind of like a roller coaster. You just kind of go up and down. If you look at your 401k pretty often, you probably shouldn't, but you probably see that thing kind of riding up and down, right? The only person that gets hurt on a roller coaster is the person that jumps off. All right? So we can't jump off. All right, come on, that's funny a little bit. Come on, we got to slacken it up a little bit. Let's laugh a little bit. All right? Come on. Put my best comedy act here for you guys. Not really, but that's the truth. So just systematic savings over time is so important, and that's not really talked about here. So, do you want to be Ben or do you want to be Arthur? That's my question to you.
Ben, ideally.
Love it. That was rhetorical, but you guys answered. I love it. Ben. We want to try to be Ben, even if you're a little bit farther in life. I mean, even if you're well into your 40s and 50s, and you're looking at this and saying, I don't have as long of a window. But that's just not true. As long as you're still breathing, as long as there's still some working years, we can still save money. We just have to pick up the pace a little bit. So you can always start, no matter where you're at in life. But obviously, if you're younger, the younger crowd here, hopefully you'll heed this and start investing early. So that's a big number. That is such a big difference. It's unbelievable. So, start saving early is one concept, but then where do I save? So this is kind of what you guys wanted, the Roth versus non-Roth option. We're going to go over here for a second. So not only do I need to start early, but it's, where you save is important as well. It's not just, saving money. There are very efficient vehicles to be saving for retirement. Okay, so hopefully this is helpful. But there are only 4 buckets of money you can save into from a tax perspective. Okay, so this is just taxes, all right? So these 4 buckets, that's it. You can't get away from these 4 buckets. And feel free to draw this as I'm going along. So we're going to start with the first bucket. We're going to call this a taxable bucket, okay? So a taxable bucket. This would be things like, well, hold on. Let me explain it first, then I'll tell you what's involved here. The way this bucket works, so the money you put into this bucket would be in after-tax dollars. So like your take-home pay. You're going to put money into these vehicles, which I'll explain in a second. All right? So your dollar's been taxed once. While your money is in these vehicles, you're going to get taxed a second time. You're going to get taxed on the interest or dividends earned every year, okay? And then coming out of this bucket, when you take money out of the bucket, you're going to get taxed a third time. This could be capital gains taxes, short-term, long-term. So the vehicles here would be individual mutual funds, okay? I'm going to abbreviate here, but mutual funds, CDs, money markets. Have you guys heard of these things? Basically, your individual investments on their own get treated like this, okay? So if you went out and bought a mutual fund, this is the way it's going to work by itself, just if you held it every year, okay? Remember, this is the tax treatment of it, okay? Least efficient bucket for retirement purposes, because that's a lot of taxes. You're going to hit a ton with taxes here, okay? So probably least efficient from a tax perspective. All right, so then we're going to go to the second bucket. So this is a tax deferred bucket. Okay, so money going in, this bucket is after taxes. Money while it grows is not taxed, and money coming out is taxed only on your gains. Okay, so I'll come back and explain in a second, but here, real estate. Think real estate right here, okay? That's the big one. Real estate and a product called annuities. Think about real estate. So let's say you bought a property for 50 grand outright. Just you went out and bought it cash. And you bought it in after-tax dollars, right, from your take-home pay. So that's where this first tax hit is. You don't pay any taxes while you hold the real estate, right? You know, you're just holding it, it's growing value. I mean, you're paying property taxes, but not taxes on the investment. Does that make sense? And then you go sell this property 10 years later, and now it's worth 100 grand, okay? You would, at that point, pay taxes on only the 50 you gained, not the 50 you initially put in. Does that make sense? Now, that's just a quick example. There's actually limits. I mean, that gain, it actually goes up to like 250 or 500,000. So it's not that. You probably wouldn't pay taxes in that scenario, but that's the concept. Does that make sense? So we got a little bit better with taxes, right? We've eliminated one time that we're taxed, but still not a very efficient bucket for retirement. A good supplement. Think of this bucket as a supplement to retirement savings. Okay? You guys following?
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully you guys can see this. These last two buckets, let's say this is a tax deductible bucket. So this tax deductible bucket, this one's going to sound a little bit familiar for some of you. So the money you put in is in before tax dollars. While you put money in here and it's growing and accumulating value, there are no taxes. And then when you pull all this money out at retirement age, taxed. Who knows what that sounds like?
401k.
401k, the traditional version of 401k. So, this is 401k. If you don't have 401k options, which you guys do, but traditional IRAs would work that way as well. Now, in your 401k, you could have mutual funds, right? So this exact same mutual fund that gets treated like this can get treated like this because the government's incentivizing you. So, in your 401k, you can't touch the money to your 59.5, right? Why? The government's incentivizing you by limiting taxes. They don't want to, frankly, take care of you in retirement. All right, so they're saying, hey, we're going to give you big tax breaks on that same mutual fund. But the catch is you got to leave it there until you're much older, or else we're going to penalize you and slap you on the wrist a little bit. Very good bucket for retirement. So now we're getting to the really good retirement buckets, okay? Now, the last bucket is the tax-free bucket. Tax-free, that sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Yes, Roberta.
This bucket, the money you put in after tax dollars, no taxes while it grows, 100% tax-free coming out. So what does this one sound like? Do you guys know?
Roth.
Bingo. So this is your Roth options right here, okay? One of the most beautiful things ever created was a Roth IRA and a Roth 401k, which I do believe you guys have Roth 401k here at P Campus. Am I right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure you are, and I looked at your benefits. So, wow. Pay the taxes up front, right? to not pay any taxes on the back end. So the main difference between a traditional and a Roth 401k is, do you want to pay taxes on the seed or the harvest? Is basically the question we're trying to answer. Go ahead.
And the reason why I'm asking this question is because someone has told me this before, but what if currently I'm at I guess a lower tax bracket, then
Yep. I know where you're going with this.
does that matter?
So that's where there's no definitive answer. It's which one's better, okay? It all depends on your situation. Are you a high income earner? So Roth actually has income thresholds. It's not a 401k, but an IRA. So if you earn, if you're single, they change it, but it's right around $113,000 a year. If you earn more than that as a single individual, you can't put into a Roth IRA. If you're married filing jointly as a household, if you're making over 183, the government won't let you put money into a Roth IRA. No restriction on a Roth 401k. This is just IRA, okay? But, so depending, to answer your question, depending on your situation, you may want a tax relief now. That's very possible. If you see yourself going down in tax bracket later, this might be a good option to take the tax break now. If you see yourself going up in tax bracket, this is a good option. If you think taxes are going to go up in the future, this might be a good option. I can't tell you what taxes are going to be. Jeff definitely can't tell you what taxes are going to be. If he tells you he's lying, don't believe him. We just don't know what taxes are going to be. Okay, so most people end up having a combination though. Okay, and for some people this makes the most sense. For some people this makes the most sense. So I can't sit here and say for everyone this is the best bucket, but I can definitively say that these two are the best for retirement savings purposes.
Combination can work too.
Did that sort of answer your question?
I'm sorry. Can you go into the thresholds again? So if I make over, what'd you say, 118,000? I can't.
113.
113. I can't contribute to a Roth IRA at all.
There's a phase out period when you get close to that threshold where you can put some, but not the full amount. But once kind of past that, no more into Roth IRA.
So what
Not
happens if you
401k.
already have one and then one day you're making over that?
You
Do
just
I
can't.
just can't contribute to it anymore?
Correct. You can't just keep it.
But
You
what I
just
have
can't.
already there just sits.
Correct. So that's a good point. So sometimes we're trying to encourage people, hey, put money into this bucket until, if you're going to exceed this threshold one day. Because once you've exceeded it, then you're out of luck. No more. Make sense? Is this helpful? What questions about this, if any? This is it though. These are the 4 buckets of money we can save into. All right?
What about Roth 401k? How's that different than traditional?
401k?
The Roth 401k.
So treated the same.
Okay.
Okay, so this is traditional 401k, this is Roth 401k. The big difference between your 401k and your IRAs is you just put a lot more money into them. Does anybody know the limits
For which one?
for either?
5,500
For
for Roth and
IRA, so 5,500 for an IRA. IRA stands for Individual Retirement Arrangement, okay? 5,500 is the most you can put in per year per person. If you're married, so that's 11 grand, right? So 5,500 per person per year for IRA. Good job. And then 401k is $18,000. So you can actually put a lot of money in your 401k. That's the most you can do though, 18,000 individually. Does that answer your question? Yes, sir.
What if you find yourself with a lot of cash? Can you buy more than one?
More
And
than
so is it possible for me to have 2 Roth IRAs that I put $5,000 in each?
Good question. Very good question. You can have more than one Roth IRA. You just cannot put more than $5,500 total
In each
into
one.
IRA. Period.
Per year.
Per year. So whether it's traditional, whether it's Roth, government doesn't care. 5,500 into IRA. Period. So you can't do 55 in a Roth, 5,500 in a traditional. Just sort of try to skirt around. Look, government wants some taxes. Let's be honest, baby. They want to be nice to an extent, but they want their taxes. All right. Let's be real here. Yes.
And typically on average, how much does it grow, like the interest? on
So
it?
that depends on what you. From there, we're going to pick a mutual fund. So a Roth IRA is not an investment. Remember this. 401k is not an investment. These are actually, 401k is actually the section of the IRS code that says you can save like this. It's IRS section 401 subsection K. And that says you can save like this. So it's not the actual investment. Remember, here we're just talking about taxes. So you could literally have, let's say, mutual fund here, XYZ, here, but you could put mutual fund XYZ here. And you sort of put a little jacket around it, you know, a little protection. You've protected it from taxes a little bit, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I want to be clear on that. This is just tax treatment. So depending on the particular investment, the particular mutual fund, let's just say that you pick, that's going to sort of determine the rate of return. And so rate of return matters too. Over time, you know, you asked the question about, you know, all these, even if you used a lower rate of return, that Arthur or Ben would have came out with more money, but it wouldn't have been as significant. The larger the rate of return, the more significant that gap becomes between people. So as long as you're invested appropriately, and I don't want to get too into the weeds on this, but you guys have heard the term diversification, right? It's like a fancy, you know, financial word that we like to throw around in our world, but all that means is just spreading risk, right? We're not putting all our risk in one basket, and there's actually 9 asset classes you can save into. And like I said, don't worry about understanding this. This is where you lean on people like us, but we basically, a good financial advisor is going to make sure you put $100 into a mutual fund. It's spread out appropriately across all these asset classes, and that it ends up in an aggressive, or just depends on how you might be a very aggressive investor, you might be a moderate investor, you might be a very conservative investor if you're close to retirement. So we need to gauge your risk tolerance, and that determines the allocation of that $100. Does that make sense? Good. Any other questions about retirement? We got to make it a priority. It is a 3-legged stool, and for our generation, it's not a 3-legged stool anymore. It's all basically on us. 80% of companies used to have a pension. It is 7% of companies now have a pension, between 7 and 11%. Pensions are very cost prohibitive for companies, so they've moved to the 401k, which is great, but it's such a great vehicle for saving, so you should use it. Social Security is changing. We don't even know if it's going to be around forever, but even if it is, it's not going to look the same. And so more and more of it's on us as a people to save.
One more question. On the Roth, I'm aware that you cannot touch the money until you're 59 and a half, right? On the 401k, is that the same age, or is it 7?
Same.
Same, okay.
Yeah, 59 and a half for both these buckets.
Okay. 59.
Government says, hey, we're going to give you some tax breaks, but it's going to come with some restrictions. We're going to give you those tax breaks, but we don't want you to touch the money. If you do, we're going to slap you on the hand.
So my other question is, because what I'm scared of is 10 years later they change the law and be like, okay, now you can't touch it till you're 65. It's just like, so.
Sure, that's certainly a risk. We have, government can change their mind. Typically, when they do that, though, they would grandfather people in a lot of times. But that shouldn't stop you from saving. Even though we don't know what laws are going to be in the future, we don't know what taxes are going to be in the future, we don't know what anything's going to be in the future. We don't know some of us don't know what we're eating for dinner tonight. We just don't know the future, but that shouldn't stop us, right? We just need to keep saving. And I promise, you can say what you want about our government, but we have a government that incentivizes you to save and incentivizes you to give money, which is pretty neat. So really cool. So hope that's helpful. That's sort of retirement again. So like I said, got to make it a priority. It's on us like never before. Starting early matters. The earlier you can start, the better, so we can beat Ben and Arthur. And where we put money is important. Especially in, there's different horizons too. You have short, medium, and long term. We're talking retirement here. Retirement's long term. Long term, these are the 2 best buckets. And we can supplement up here if we run out, if we cap these out. Okay? All right. Any other questions about retirement? Let's move on then. Let's move on to debt reduction. Okay? So that baby step 2 you saw was get out of debt. What we're really about to say right now is kind of a paradigm shift. Thinking about getting out of debt and living debt free, that is not normal. But that's okay. Normal's not always good in this topic, like what we have found out. So, paying off debt. We came in here 2 weeks ago, whatever that was, and we polled about, I think there were 17, 18 people in the room. And you want to share those, actually?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I just averaged it to be 20 people. We had an average total non-mortgage debt of $650,000. Total credit cards
Total as a group.
as a group.
Yeah,
as a group.
not average.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Total of the
We're all
entire group.
Total of the group.
The total amount of credit cards out of the group was 68, and the cash that they had available was $250,000. So that averages out to be about $32,000 of debt per person, 3.4 credit cards per person, and cash available was $12,500 they could get access to. Use your analogy about the credit card and cancer.
Some of that makes you student loans, though.
Yeah.
Totally.
The student
I
loans
forgot,
debt.
I forgot to add student loans on there. Oops.
The student. Yeah, student loans is debt, though.
I forget about my student loans.
What we always find when we do these
No, I'm not paying
classes.
it right now.
What we always find when we do these classes, regardless of where it is, doesn't matter where we're at. I could be in a financial institution, but we're in a lot of debt as a nation. We're in a lot of debt as people, and debt is the complete opposite version of compounding interest that we just saw. So you just saw compound interest work for you. Guess what? Debt works compound interest against you. That is you. That is the forces of compound interest completely working against you. Albert Einstein said the 8th wonder of the world is compounding interest. Those who understand it earn it. Those who don't pay it. And what end do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the wrong end of it, or do you want to be on the good end of it? I want to be on the good end of it. I don't know about you guys, but part of that's getting out of debt, and we need to get out of debt. And so the way we get out of debt, and Jeff's going to explain this to you, is what's called a debt snowball. Okay? So Jeff, go ahead and take it away. Explain the debt snowball.
So the debt snowball. A lot of people we talk to, especially out of the courses that we teach, is they try to spend a little bit of money on a lot of different debts, right? Regardless of what the interest rate is. So I put this up here. My handwriting is not good, so apologize for that. We have a person here. They've got $500 on a credit card. They've got $12,000 on a car, and they've got $14,000 on their college education. What we don't need to worry about right now is the mortgage. So if you do have a mortgage, we're not talking about that. We're just talking about these debts. So what a lot of individuals will do is put an extra $50 on this a month, extra $50 on this a month, an extra $50 on this month. So it moves that target just a little bit. What a debt snowball is you pay the minimums on all these other debts, and you pay as much as you can on the first debt, all right? So we're just going to say that the individual has $500 or $600, so they're doing $400 on this, and their minimums on this, $50. They pay this off. All right, so now that debt is gone. Probably just cross it off. Now that debt's gone. Now they're paying extra on the second smallest debt. Okay? They pay this debt off. Now they take that money. So we're talking about, say, $500. Now they have their $550. Now they're attacking this debt, and this debt's gone. When these debts are gone, that's when we start moving into the investments like we were talking about, and saving cash in case you have an issue, an emergency fund.
So get out of debt's all about momentum is what Jeff's talking about. Did you notice he didn't talk about interest rates? We don't care what the interest rates are. That credit card, or let's say the education, might be the highest interest rate on there. And you've probably heard, hey, attack your debts with the highest interest rates. And that's mathematically correct. But getting out of debt is not about math. It is about momentum. You got to get a quick win. You get what I'm saying? It's almost kind of like working out or eating. You get these quick wins, and you start feeling good about yourself, and it becomes a habit. It just starts snowballing. And so again, you attack that first debt. And that first debt, if you really want to get this ball rolling, like if you're in here and you're in a lot of debt, I hope you're listening. And if you're in a lot of debt, that first one, we got to knock it out quick. We got to get out of it fast. We got to sell some things. Like we got to just go raid our closets, sell all the junk we have. I promise you, you're going to buy more junk later. All right, sell so much stuff your kids think they're next. I mean, you just got to sell, and get out of debt. We got to knock this first one out. We got to get rid of that one. And then, like Jeff said, you take that payment of that first one and you roll it into the second one. Okay, so that was like he was saying. So, but you're used to that. Let's just say it was $50 going out for the credit card every month. You're used to that going out every month. So even when that's gone, don't say, okay, now I got 50 of breathing room. Just tack on the 50 to the next one, and more so. Sell some other stuff to get out of the next one. And we've seen it. We've seen people get out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. It took a year or two. It took a couple of years, but we've seen people get out of so much debt because they were focused. Like we talked about earlier about making it a priority, they made it a priority. And debt is suffocating. And debt, you don't need. That is a lie and a myth of our culture that you, for some reason, cannot survive in this planet if you don't have debt, okay? You don't have a credit card. You can, I promise you. Now, I already know some walls are going up in your heads. You've already got some things you want to debate me on, and that's okay. We can talk through those. Happens every time. But the point, like I said, is so that you can free up cash flow, so that we can put money over here, so that we can really be using it to your advantage as opposed to somebody else's advantage. Myth, here's a myth. Well, I pay off my credit card every month. You probably heard that. You probably heard people say that. You're like, Truth. Over 100 million Americans don't pay off their credit card balances every month. That's the truth. Sorry, I thought he was like playing a joke on me behind me. I wouldn't put it past Jeff. Jeff's a jokester over here. That's the truth. 100 million Americans don't pay off their credit card balances every month. You don't need to live in debt. Debt is a product. Think about it like this. Debt is a product that's being sold to you. And these guys are great. I've got nothing against these companies. They are fantastic marketers. They're some of the best marketing people in the world. Work for debt companies, credit card companies. But they've led us almost to believe that we have to have it. It's a product that we're on our hands and knees asking for to some extent. And they're just sitting there excited because guess what? Compound interest, they get to take it all in. And they really get to. Now, debts can be leveraged for good. Don't hear me. I ain't saying debt's evil. I'm saying you're evil if you have debt. Okay, let's not go to extremes here. But realize you're being marketed to. They're leading you to believe that you cannot live without debt. So, what are you guys thinking as I'm saying this? What are your natural thoughts coming out? And be real. Be honest with me. I promise you I've heard it before.
Well, some time ago I was thinking about just writing a check and writing off my student loans. It's not that much, but anyway. But I was told that for your credit score, it's good to have a little bit of debt and have at least one credit card open and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Good.
What is your thought?
Objection of one. Never heard this one. No, I'm
I
just
like
kidding.
this one.
I like this one. Absolutely. So that's the biggest, pushback to living debt free is, well, what about my credit score? What about my credit score? What about my credit score? If you went and found the composition of your credit score is made up of 4, different categories, but all of it is your interaction with debt. It has no, bearing on anything else you do. It's literally just your interaction with debt. And we sort of live at the mercy of our FICO score, right? Oh, mighty FICO, what is my FICO score, and you know what? You don't need it, to be honest with you. All that FICO score tells us, all your credit score tells us, is how good are you in debt? That's really all it's telling us. And there are ways to live outside of debt, even like a mortgage. So I know one of you is going to bring it up, so I'm just going to bring it up. People eventually say, well, how do you buy a house? Like, how do you buy a house without a credit score? There's things called manual underwriting, where there are companies that will literally look at, are you paying your gas bill on time? Are you paying your rent on time? They'll factor in other costs that you have, and they'll manually underwrite a mortgage for you. So there are ways to live without a credit score and without debt. But it's not easy. And I'm telling you, I told you, I prefaced it by saying this is a paradigm shift. A lot of you aren't going to even believe this, or you're not going to adopt this, and that's okay. But just know compound interest is working against you, not for you. So, not sure if does that answer your question to some extent?
I don't know if you got an opportunity to pay your student loans off, pay things off.
It was kind of like save my money or.
Hey, remember, always revert back to the baby steps. Where are you? You know, if you need some, you gotta make sure you need some cash first. You gotta make sure some
Right.
cash.
Well,
Then hey, go after it.
Yeah, it's
I'm all
very
for it.
minimal anyway.
Man, I pay it off.
I like this
Because mine's
guy.
not minimal. My other thing is, if you want to get a house, show up with 20% cash down. You'll get that house.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He took my answer. I love it. I love
Yeah.
this guy. People always tell me,
I'm not
like,
gonna turn away 20%
how am I gonna buy
cash down.
something? How am I gonna buy something? Cash. Like money. That's how we buy things. Like if you save up. We know people that have paid cash for houses. They saved up for a couple of years and they went and dropped cash on a house. You don't have to be that extreme, okay? We don't need to live in the extreme worlds of this, but you know, it can be done. And especially some of the consumer debts, we can stay out of those and put money where it's benefiting you and your family and your kids' education. Because the same way over here, you can use some of these for education purposes. So, good.
As a kind of two funny stories is a buddy of mine, he tried to go just as a kind of joke, go get an apartment, right? He has a 0 credit score. So they would not allow him to get a apartment. So what did he do? He just bought the entire complex with cash. He just bought it. So he's got plenty of apartments now and he rents them out, but you know, so he did not have a credit score. It was a 0 credit score. This is all about, the debt snowball is honestly, it's about behavior modifications. It's not about mathematics, it's about changing your behavior. So knocking the first out and bringing it to the next and trying to stay out of debt the best that you can.
Any questions about debt reduction before we move on? We're going to hop off of our soapbox for a second, but we feel strongly about this topic. I lived in a family that was over leveraged, a family that had money, a family that just got in way over their heads with debt, and I saw the joy that steals from life, that steals from marriage, that steals from everything. And so putting all these pieces together, you get something called financial peace. 2 words that don't normally go together, but they can go together if you're willing to work for it. And a big part of that's debt. So, good. We can help you get out of debt, but the way is a snowball. All right? Who's got the time?
9:55.
9:55?
Yep.
Wow.
I have to jump out. Sorry, I've got another call.
Yikes. All right, so we're just going to do, we literally just have a 5-minute video, 4-minute video. We're going to draw this, and then we're going to be done. So, actually, let me draw this, and then we'll jump into the video and end with that. So, real quick, let me just give you a visual. You guys can draw this as we go. So, planning, kind of give you a roadmap, a visual picture. I'm a visual learner. I'm sure most of you are too. 3 tiers of financial planning, okay? Those are the baby steps. Here's it kind of visually. Planning is offensive and defensive. Offensive is that fun part, defensive is the not fun part we're about to talk about. But there's a top tier of planning called estate planning. Okay? This is things like wills, living wills, power of attorneys, and guardians, naming guardians for your children. Okay, this is sort of think of this as the cherry on top of planning, okay? It's just the bow that's tying it all together, all right? These are attorneys, you know, that work in the sphere, not Jeff and I. The middle section here is what we just talked about, wealth accumulation. This is the fun part of planning. This is the offensive section of planning. Okay, for simplicity purposes, I'm just going to write investing. So think of those 4 buckets we just talked about, all right? These 4 buckets over here. Investing, compound interest working for you as opposed to someone else. And then the foundation of planning is defense. And there's nothing exciting about it. There's nothing glorious about it, but this is just risk management. We hate the word insurance, don't we? Anybody hate the word insurance? You guys are lying. You hate the word insurance. All right, so
It's on the insurance.
7 insurances we feel like you need. 4 of them I'm going to write on here, and then 3 I'll put on the bottom. Health insurance, okay? That one's a no-brainer. We'd rather pay a copay and the deductible than the actual medical bill, right? That one's pretty simple. Life insurance, especially if you're married, if you've got kids, if you've got dependents, if you've got debts to your name, that are going to pass on to somebody. We need some life insurance because none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. These are concepts, not insurances, but emergency savings. We just talked about that. And debt reduction. It is part of the risk management side, the foundation of your planning. So I abbreviated, but emergency savings, debt reduction. And then 2 more cogs, disability and long-term care. So disability, disability is the cornerstone piece of your financial plan. Many of you probably don't even know what it is. It is income protection. It protects your income. Everything on here, everything we've talked about, it is based off your ability to come here to Peak Campus and do your job, right? If you get sick or injured and can't do your job, Peak Campus is a great organization, but they're just not going to give you money, okay, if you can't work. And so our greatest asset as an individual is our ability to work, okay? Without it, we don't have a plan whatsoever. Now, you guys have a phenomenal benefits package here. It's better than most that I usually see. It's rare that I see short-term, long-term, life, 401ks, Roth 401ks. Not every company has all these things. So you guys have short-term and long-term disability. And long-term is the important one, the really important one, long-term disability. It protects you long-term, right? Okay, so up until really retirement age. And so it's about 60% of your income would be covered, all right? Which is a taxable 60% if you ever went on claim. So it's about half of your income's protected. What you need to do, that's still not quite enough. It's a great benefit. That's sort of the limitations. With group benefits, they can only offer so much, but there's still a gap there, so you want to try to shore up that gap. Supplement the rest of your disability. So more like 100% of your income's covered. Does that make sense? Because that's our plan. Our plan needs an income. If we don't have an income, we don't have a plan. So cornerstone, that's why there's a little star there, okay? And long-term's a little bit more important than short-term, but you got short-term, so that's great. Long-term care covers you in retirement, okay? So this is your protection in retirement. Has anybody had family in a nursing home or assisted living ever? Or heard of someone in a retirement home? Very expensive. Can drain your financial savings when you get down the road. Average cost of a nursing home in Georgia is about $7,000 a month. A month, believe it. That's going to drain your finances. And if it drains yours, guess who it's draining next? Your children, your family members. So it's not just a you problem. And even if you can afford it, but let's say you got that claim, I work with a cardiologist and he can afford it. He's got a lot of money. But we showed him an analysis and we showed him his net worth if he had a long-term care event. And he had very little to leave his children. And 75% of all people retiring today at age 65, 3/4 of them are going to have a long-term care event in their retirement because we're living longer lives. That was one of the risks we talked about earlier. So very important insurance at some point along the way. Real quick, last 3 ones, and then we're going to jump on this video. These are the obvious ones. Auto insurance, homeowners, / renters. If you're a renter, you need renters. And identity protection, identity theft protection, just because of the age we live in. So those are really the 7 insurances we think you have to have. All else are sort of ancillary, and you may not need them if we talked about them. So I know we had one quick question. Can we hold it to the end then?
Oh, no, I didn't have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is your visual though. All right, so this is baby steps. You don't do all this at once, right? We're doing this in baby steps. We're knocking things out as we need it, but some of you really need to just start down here. Some of you need, some of these insurances, then you build on that. But you've got a rock solid foundation to build on. These are all these insurances are tied to a financial risk. They have a financial implication if that happens. And then we can, like I said, build on that risk-free. So I just want to reinforce it with this video, and then we'll end with this. Do we have sound? Can we bump up the sound?
One of those days where fall is, well, it's doing its best to take over for summer. I was locked down in my office. I had do not disturb signs on everything, and I was trying to meet a deadline on one of these books for one of these publishers. Get things written up, and you know, if I get interrupted, I can't stay on task. My assistant came in and said, Dave, there's a guy outside in the reception area that wants to meet you. And I said, well, I'm kind of busy here. I'm kind of locked down. I'm trying to meet this deadline. And she said, well, I think this is important. And well, I know by now if she thinks it's important that I need to go check it out. I admit my attitude wasn't perfect, but okay, I'm gonna go over here and put the happy face on, and I'm kind of grousing across the lobby and interrupted. You know how it is. Everybody's kind of that way, I guess. I get over there, I walk into our reception area, and this young guy stands up in the middle of September with a stocking cap on. And his pretty little wife stands up beside him. I said, well, hi, I'm Dave. And he said, my name's Steve. I'm Steve Maness. And he said, I just wanted to stop by and tell you thank you. I'm thinking, thank me for what? And he said, Dave, you changed our lives. The stuff you teach is unbelievable. And I said, well, thanks. That's really nice. Actually, I was writing, so it's kind of inspiring. So I thought, this is nice. And he said, no, you just really don't understand, do you? And I said, well, you're welcome. I'm glad you're winning. And he said, no. And he reached up and he took a stocking cap just like this off the top of his head. And I went, wow. Because there was a big scar right across the top of his head. Of course, his head had been shaved because he'd been operated on. He said, Dave, I'm 28 years old. I got brain cancer. The doc says, I'm not gonna make it. I said, I'm okay with that. I love Jesus, I know where I'm going. And this is my 23-year-old wife, Sandy. Because of what you teach, Sandy's gonna be okay. And he said, Dave, before all this happened, we were out of debt. We had an emergency fund. And I'm thinking, that's important, but what's that matter in light of this? And he said, no, I got $400,000 in term life insurance on me before this happened. Sandy's gonna be okay. And we got an HSA, we got a good health savings program, and so 100% of my medical bills have been paid, and everything's gonna be okay financially. He said, you don't know how much easier it makes it to fight cancer when you're doing it from that kind of a setting. Thank you. Well, Steve Maness and I became friends right there. And we walked with him and Sandy as they fought the cancer. And you know how fighting cancer is. It comes back, and then you think you're gonna beat it, and then it comes back again. And I wrote about them because of the importance of insurance in one of my books. And a wealthy friend of mine read the story and anonymously gave them the gift of a 7-day cruise in the Caribbean. How cool is that? That's the way you're supposed to do stuff, you know? Well, November 17th, Steve came by the office with his dad and sat in on our devotionals. He just became a friend to everybody on our team. You know, we prayed with him, and he was an inspiration. He was something else. 11 days later, 4:30 in the afternoon, we lost Steve Maness. So he's in heaven now. You know, I don't always understand how things work, and I guess when I get to heaven, I'm going to ask God about these things. Because if he had lived just 3 more days, we'd have been able to introduce him to his son, Whitten. Sandy and Whitten, you know, it's a sad story, but they're doing really well. Whitten's a little pistol, kind of like his dad. You see, the things that we talk about right here, it's about life. Don't confuse financial planning, doing the right thing for your family. It's about life.
Heavy for a Wednesday.
That was good.
Yeah, that's heavy for a Wednesday. We wanted to end on that note, and that's the importance of the defensive section of what we're talking about as a financial implication. So thank you for having us this morning. You know, we'd love to